Hello, guys. I hope you guys are having a good weekend. Glad to have you guys here. Now, I'm going to get right into what I want to talk about right now, and I want to talk about what in the heck's going on with this breakdown in the economy. And okay, you know what? This has been coming on for a long time. It's the result of excesses, and it's a result of criminal activity. It's a result of an awful lot that's been going on, and it's a culmination. Basically, this is a culmination, and you want to know how this is going to proceed forward, moving forward now that it's started. We're in the first bits of it, and so I'm going to explain that and what to expect. How this thing's going to unfold, right? Now, here's the thing I want to say real quick, is Trump didn't start this fire. This fire was well and burning before Trump got in office, and Trump is doing his darn best to manage us through this crisis. And in fact, he has, through his programs and stuff, he stimulated the economy to a certain degree. And I think he's probably one of the best presidents we've had in a heck of a long time. Fantastic. Bringing peace to, or at least moving toward bringing peace toward the North Korean continent. Unbelievable. So anyway, moving on with what's happening. You got to form pictures in your mind to try to understand this. Picture the economy as a sandcastle on the beach. Now, the tide is coming in. And if you've ever watched the tide come in, if you've ever stood there, or say you set up a lawn chair on the beach and you're on a lovely sunny day, and the tide's coming in, and you're sitting back there relaxing with your eyes shut, maybe some suntan oil on you and stuff, and the waves are washing up at your lawn chair. The waves might be just coming up to the front of your lawn chair, right? And you're sitting there and enjoying yourself and everything, and the waves are lapping in. All of a sudden, this bigger wave, a little bit bigger than all the others, comes washing in and washes up over your feet and everything and wakes you up, and you're like, wow, what's going on? And it washes 3 feet past you up this way, and then it washes out again. And then the very next wave, it comes back in, and it's not as big, and it's more where the waves were. But if you were to sit there and wait long enough, a really big wave would come in, and it would wash in the next one. It would take maybe 5 minutes later for the really big one to come in. Now, that first wave is a warning. The wave that washed over your feet and stuff and woke you up. That was a warning. The next wave will come maybe 4 or 5 minutes later, and it might wash you backwards and knock your lawn chair over, right? So, talking back about our sandcastle, each subsequent wave, it'll wash out. There'll be a big wave when the tide's coming in, and then what it'll do is that'll wash out, and you'll get a little bit of a respite for a little while. But don't be fooled, because the next wave coming is going to be much bigger than that one yet, because the tide's coming in. Well, that's the way with this crisis. This crisis began a few months ago, and the first few little tiny waves were almost not noticeable. They were only noticeable by people who study and observe the financial system. Trends forecasters like myself, and financial experts, and also people that really understand the financial system, seeing the first little tiny waves because they're so small. Now, this wave that just came in was a little bit bigger, and it was more noticeable, and a lot of people out there are starting to notice it now. But time is passing now. This wave's going to wash out. It's going to wash back out again, and things are going to seemingly go back to normal somewhat, a little bit. But what we're waiting for and what's coming is the big wave that's going to wake everybody up. It's going to come crashing in. It's going to wake everybody up. But that wave too will go back out. And then a bigger tsunami's coming in later. this is going to keep coming in these waves. Now, the first stage of this crisis is going to be a deflationary stage. And what that means is, it means that money is receding out of the system. And what's causing this effect, what's making the money drain out of the system, is the Fed. The Fed is draining the liquidity out of the system. And now they've increased to a rate of $50 billion every month of liquidity they're draining out of the system. Now the system's huge. So when they drain this 50 billion out, at first it's not that big a deal because the system's got so much awash with liquidity. But if they keep draining that 50 billion out every month, month after month after month, each month's like ding, 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 it adds up. After a while, all of a sudden the system's drained of liquidity. And this is going to cause a deflation. But see, what it is, it's like undermining something. I'll use an example to explain what the draining of liquidity is like. It's like when you have ice out over the ocean and the water's warming up and it's melting the ice from underneath and there's nothing to hold the ice from up top. The ice will stay up there. It'll be flat up there and it'll stay up there and the ice and the water's drained out from underneath it and all of a sudden it'll collapse. That's the way with draining the liquidity out. It'll stay put, roughly, until all of a sudden it collapses with the liquidity drained out. It's an effect. Let's see, Jim Rickards, he described this effect very well. He called it, what was the name he used? Complexity theory or something like that. I can't think of the name he used, but he explained it very well. He used an illustration of in the wintertime with avalanches. How an avalanche will build up a lot of snow and pressure, and it sits there. It's not really going anywhere. It's like, but the pressure's there. It's ready to go. Complexity theory. That's what he called it. Complexity theory. And all of a sudden, it'll go. It'll let loose and go. But the pressure has to build up. The snow pressure, the weight of all the snow continues to fall. Well, this is a reverse of that because they're draining liquidity out. But what happens is seemingly there's no effect. And then when the effect occurs, it's sudden, swift, and horrible. And that's going to lead to what I call a deflationary spike event, where it's going to be a short-lived event. And the reason why it's going to be short-lived is because it's going to be so bad that the central banks of the earth will not be able to let it continue. It's going to send shock waves through the whole earth, this event. It's probably going to be the fall in the stock market. It's probably going to be very swift. Now, just like any earthquake or volcano, you get the ground trembling first. That's a warning, a little tremble of the ground. Like the volcano's getting ready to blow. The ground starts to tremble a little bit. Well, we had our warning back in January when the stock market fell like 1,000 points in one day. That was the tremble. That was a little shudder into the ground for the volcano to blow. But the stock market recovered, and now it's set all-time new highs. There's an old saying, what goes up has to come down. So this deflationary spike event is probably going to be in the stock markets of the world. Not just the Dow Jones, not just the S&P 500 and all these North American markets, but all through Asia and everywhere. The Shanghai Index, all of them. They're just going to fall simultaneously. The world's central banks at that point, they've been working in unison right now to tighten. And basically they're tightening their belts. They're just like, they're going on this rampage to try to normalize everything from what happened in the 2008 crisis. But when this event hits, they're all going to work in conjunction just as much as they're working now to normalize things and try to tighten and everything. And they're being conservative right now. They're going to be just as liberal. In other words, they're going to turn from hawks to uber doves. They're all going to turn to doves. But it's going to take this event to give them a shift in their perspective and make them change their opinion and make them move over to being dovish. Well, what's going to be the effect of this dovish maneuver? It's very simple, guys. It's going to be an economic recovery. But unlike 2008, when the Fed came in, they didn't do enough stimulus. They just did enough to pull us out of it, but they didn't follow through. It's like a fighter. They always train a guy. They say, you know what? When you're throwing a jab, throwing a punch, follow through, or you don't get the job done. And that's the way with this. It's like the Fed threw a punch, but they threw a little jab and they didn't follow through. They just gave enough, just enough stimulus to create a bogus economic recovery. And a lot of people believed in the bogus economic recovery, and the reason why was they come so close to creating an actual recovery. This time, they're going to go over, and they are going to do enough stimulus to create, because all the world's central banks will be at it at the same time. They're going to create an economic recovery. But at the same time, they're going to have created so much monetary units to do this that they're going to start to adversely affect the buying power of all of those new monetary units. In other words, massive inflation worldwide for all fiat currencies. The people are going to start to go out and spend. And the more they spend, the quicker these fiat currencies are going to lose value. Then other people who are savers are going to say, hey, you know what? Honest to God, I can't buy as much this year as I bought last year. They're going to say, I'm going to go in and pull my money out of the bank and I'm going to buy it this year, which is logical thinking. But it only goes to increase this crack-up boom or this hyperinflation that's coming worldwide to all of the fiat currencies. Simultaneously, we have these cryptocurrencies that will be going in the opposite direction at that point in time. They will be moving up in value. And this is going to incur faith in their purchasing power. Whereas people are going to be suddenly losing faith in the fiat currencies, they're going to be putting faith into the cryptographic currencies, which will seem to them as a very stable place to put their money. And there will be no more of this stuff like we've seen with Bitcoin that rises and then falls. No more falls. It's always just going to be up. For all of the cryptocurrencies, up, 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 when the fiat is falling. And we're going to be looking at probably the biggest bull run in cryptocurrencies, but the biggest fall in fiat currencies, all happening simultaneously, side by side. And gold and silver, too, at the same time will be going up, 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 up. But at a certain point, the fiat currencies are going to die because people are not going to have faith in them. Ultimately, at some point in the future, far into this, maybe 10 years from now, people will, in small groups, go back to fiat currencies. Cash, but it's going to, that is something entirely different story. That's got to do with the utilitarian uses in small areas, because fiat is good stuff if it's used properly. So we might get a revolution back to fiat currency at some point in the future. In some places of the earth, there might be uses for it. But it's going to be almost like nostalgia because most of the world is going to be in this digital monetary system in the future. And in the end, they won't even use phones. They're just going to have a number, your number. And this is where we're going with this. There's no sense fighting it. This is where it's ultimately leading, is to a world where your money is not seen anymore. Right now, you see your money, you pull your wallet out of your pocket, you open up your wallet, and there's your money. In the future, your money is not going to be seen. It's going to be in the web. It's going to belong to you, only attached to you by a number. But nevertheless, you won't be able to lose your money anymore. Nobody will be able to steal it from you anymore. It's going to be assigned to you, basically, your money. And so you're going to have the freedom where you're probably not even going to need to carry a wallet anymore. Ultimately, because of this blockchain type technology and these smart contracts and stuff, all of your paperwork is also going to be stored with that number, so you won't need to carry all of these passports and all of these papers and everything anymore. That'll be a thing of the past. And as far as I'm concerned, thank God, because it's just a pain in the ass, a total pain in the ass. What we've done to ourselves. The fact that we have to carry around these stupid papers all the time. And let's face it, this is basically, there's no country on earth that was more into this whole thing about papers, please, than Germany. Seriously. To me, it's just total... I'm not even going to go there. I don't even want to go there right now because, first off, thank God for Donald Trump, and at some point in the future, through social media and everything else, freedom of speech is going to be readopted again. But you have to be careful what you say now with all these social justice warriors and everything else going out there, and all this malarkey who are threatening our very freedoms. I'm not going to deny it's going on, but I'm not going to really get involved in it too much right now, because right now we're talking about the economy. So these successive waves are going to come washing in, and each time they're going to be bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger. And this has already started. We've went through the first few small waves. In the end, it's going to be a tidal wave, and it's going to be so that everybody notices it. Because basically they're going to be drowning in it. This is not going to go away. This has already begun. The crash, the economic problems have begun, and it's going to be like nothing you've ever seen in your life, because I am not so sure that things are actually going to hold together. Because the structure of and I've done shows on this before, and I've talked about this a lot, the structure of our society has become extremely fragile because of everything's interrelated now. Everything is dependent. Codependencies. It's like chains, supply chains. They call them just-in-time delivery. You know, everything's fresh on delivery. And it's like the whole thing is held together basically on an oil-based economy. You cut off the oil supply, all of us will die. You cut off the internet, all of us will die. And so what we've done is we've created these dependencies that our life depends upon it. It's as silly as making a house by going to a cliff someplace, okay? Extending poles out over the cliff, bamboo poles out over the cliff, dropping a couple ropes made from fishing line down, and hanging the house by those threads. What kind of a house would that be if you did that? Well, you might be able to live inside of it if you didn't jump up and down, break the threads, and down you go. Down, crash. That's the house we're living in. It's that fragile. Why don't we build a house on a good solid rock foundation instead of building it hanging out over a cliff? Basically, that's what we've done for ourselves. But really what we've done is we've allowed our politicians, the fat little porkers that they are, to manage things for us, and they are a bunch of criminals. They're a criminal cartel. Trump's trying to clean them up. He's trying to clean them up. He's trying to clean out the swamp. But it's such a big job, and there's so many of them, that it's hard, and it's taken a long time. I think he's working at it, behind the scenes. He's doing his best anyway, I think. Got to give him kudos for that. Anyway, so we're heading headfirst into this crisis. Be prepared. Watch the bond market, guys. The bond market, I think, is the trigger. And what we just experienced, this wave of a rise up to almost my mark of 3.25%. Now what I'm expecting now is a recede. I'm expecting it to recede back a little bit, almost like the wave come in. It's at its crest right now or close to it, and then it'll recede back just a little bit for a while. But don't be fooled. Everything will seem to normalize for a little while. Don't be fooled. Because next time when the bond market goes up, it'll go right on past the 3.25, probably up to 3.45 or 3.5%, heading toward 4%, probably in a month or two down the road. And that's when it's going to go past the mark I put. I don't think this time is going to be enough. I think that the stock market's going to recover. I think the bond market's going to recede, and we're going to normalize this time, I think. But next time, the next one, maybe a month or so from now, I think that one's going to be a bigger push, a bigger wave, and I think the stock market's going to roll over, and she's going to really fall. And once she starts falling, then she's going to fall in stages. Just like the bond market right now, pushes in, and then it goes back, pushes in and goes back. It's almost like it's breathing. Each time it comes out further, like a bigger wave. The stock market, when it falls, is going to be the same deal. It's going to be a fall, and then it'll stop, and then it'll bounce. And then it'll seem to normalize a little bit, and then it'll drop again. This all takes time. It takes months to actually unfold. But when it starts to unfold, our system could start to actually melt down to a point where they're going to have to respond to this meltdown at a certain point. And I'm going to expect that response in the first quarter of 2019. That's when I'm expecting the response. That's when I'm expecting the turnaround from all of the world central banks to stop this. They're going to all turn dovish. And then that's when I'm expecting the economic recovery, is in the first or maybe second quarter of 2019. I'm expecting the economic recovery. And then I'm expecting things to start to move in the opposite direction toward the hyperinflation, which is probably going to be coming in 2019, probably the latter part of 2019. We'll be moving into the hyperinflation. And ultimately, that's what's going to really do the bad damage. But that's quite a ways out. In the short term, we're in for the deflation. So, the deflation and the hyperinflation are two completely different animals, but we're going to be experiencing both of them. First one, and then the other. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye-bye, guys.